So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this afternoon, I'm delighted that we have with us Alex Miles, who's the managing director at Yorkshire Learning Providers. So, Alex, thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Yorkshire Learning Providers to the audience, what you do, how you do it, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. As you've said, my name's Alex Miles, Managing Director of Yorkshire Learning Providers. Yorkshire Learning Providers is a not-for-profit membership-based organisation based in Yorkshire,
Great.
supporting the post-16 education providers up and down the kind of Yorkshire region. So we have 105 members made up of colleges, independent training providers, universities, careers services, awarding organisations, local authorities, anybody that provides kind of post-16 education to businesses and to adults. We support those training providers. So we're their representative body. We are their voice. We provide that united voice. We provide an umbrella organisation for all those entities. And we act really as the conduit between public policy and the communities and the businesses that receive are in receipt of that kind of education policy. So we kind of represent our members' views with people like the local authorities, the combined authorities, the Department for Education, Ofsted, Northern Powerhouse Partnership. And we make sure that the post-16 education offer is never off the table. And we provide, I guess, a voice for the voiceless. Everybody knows about colleges and everybody knows about universities, but what they don't know about is some of the fantastic skills-based programs that other training providers are doing. And also we are responsible for kind of promoting the post-16 offer, promoting our members' offer. So we do a lot of work with businesses to try and encourage them to take on apprenticeships, or to work with businesses to really understand their skills needs or their skills gaps, so we can go in and provide a bit of a organizational kind of holistic needs analysis, and we can say what skills we think businesses need to thrive and survive and grow and be more productive and be more economically active. And we do that across West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, North Yorkshire and East Yorkshire. So we've got members and businesses and schools that we support across all of the remits to try and promote and enhance and engage into education programs.
Brilliant.
It's a really great organisation. Everything we do is kind of steeped in social improvement, social justice, social mobility, and really putting education at the forefront of what businesses should be thinking in terms of kind of their growth and their opportunities for greater productivity, but also when we're speaking to parents or teachers or young people about what their career trajectory could be, or what their next steps are post kind of formal education. And we do it with our members, on behalf of our members. And it's a great little organization. We're very small, but we punch well above our weight. And we have three functions to the business. We have our network, which is our members, and all the stuff we do to support our members. We then have a projects, research and contracts arm. So we get commissioned a lot by either by local bodies or people like the Department for Education to run certain commissioned research or do some specific place-based, localised, Yorkshire-based projects that support education and training. And supporting SMEs is our priority at the moment, trying to get more small businesses to understand apprenticeships and understand their benefits and their and just the great programs to kind of support and boost productivity and business growth. And then we also do lots of bits of commissioned research. So we're doing a piece of research around the health and social care needs and where the gaps are around digital, and how we can support a more digitally focused region. And what does that mean? What does being more digital mean? So doing lots of kind of gap analysis and industry deep dives, and really trying to bridge the gap between what industries say they want and what education can provide, because that's sometimes quite a big gap. And so we're trying to kind of bridge that gap through the research and the commissioned work that we're doing.
Well, and things are changing so fast, and obviously
Yeah, absolutely.
going through lockdown, how businesses operated changes just absolutely fundamentally.
Yeah,
It must have been
absolutely.
quite an exciting time of the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if exciting was the word. Um,
Okay.
I think it's exciting now. I think post lockdown, everyone was
Fair
just
comment.
businesses were in a state of recovery, and education was still here trying to do its thing. But
Yeah,
sometimes, skills programs or workforce development wasn't at the top of a lot of
yes,
people's agenda. It was just about business recovery and
yeah,
getting back to fighting fit. So
yes,
what we did see was a bit of a decline in things like apprenticeships and
yeah,
skills-based programs. And that's the same for our sector. We're probably still in a state of recovery as an
yeah,
education sector. We lost a lot of people that left the sector and said, nope,
yeah,
no, thank you, don't want to go back to education.
yes,
But now I think it's exciting. We've got a potential political landscape change.
yeah,
We've got lots of programs that are on offer out there for businesses. So I think, yeah, from the kind of 23, 24 is the exciting bit. I
yeah.
think anything before that was just a state of recovery.
Yeah, no, I absolutely, I can imagine. Yeah, as you say, it was pretty terrible for many people,
Oh, yeah.
and I can imagine, as you say, if businesses are the primary sort of client for this for what you do, then obviously if their focus is on just surviving, then our voice isn't going to be heard as often or as much as.
Yeah.
So just talking about yourself to start with, what can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to join this organisation, and why this particular one?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have been with this company since the day it started. So, which was 20
Brilliant,
years ago. We're celebrating our 20th birthday this
brilliant,
year. So, we are
congratulations.
20 years old. And I came into the business to be their employer engagement manager,
Yep,
um, employer support manager, I think it was,
yep,
and to help set up the funding and contracting
yes,
department. And then that has kind of transpired into multiple different roles. And I took over as CEO, managing director 7 years ago, 8 years ago, seven
right,
years ago. Um, and I was lucky enough, the organisation I worked at before was a company called Leeds Training Trust, which was an engineering training organisation
yes,
based in Leeds.
yep,
And I was working for a project that was going around businesses and schools and trying to raise the profile of apprenticeships,
yep,
which is kind of I now have people in my team that go around schools and businesses speaking to people about apprenticeship. So 2 decades later, when we're
yep,
still kind of doing the same
brilliant,
thing, which could be seen as a good thing, but could be seen as a not a great thing if we're still having to go and bang
yeah,
fight the good fight and bang the same drum. But
yes,
we move. And the CEO at that training provider was part of a group of training providers that wanted to set up an organisation that was a representative body of all training providers.
right, yeah,
And the local, they were called the LSC at the time, the Learning and Skills Council.
yes,
They didn't want, or they couldn't, or they didn't have the capacity to speak to 101 different training providers. They wanted to set up. So we were initially given funding by the LSC.
right,
We were given a year's worth of funding, and then you said you have to be self-financing and self-sustainable after
yeah,
that. So that was 20 years ago. Um,
brilliant,
and um, and so when the project that I was working on for that training provider came to an end, I was kind of perfectly placed to move into the new company. So
yeah,
yeah, I was the first member of staff, and I've reflected, I think, as we've kind of been approaching our 20th birthday, about why I've stayed so long. And I think in education, it's such a sector of movement, and
yeah,
I would always say, I'll just get your company through the next big
yes,
thing or the next hurdle, or I'll just get us through our next Ofsted inspection, or I'll just
yep,
get us through our next change in government, or I'll just get us through our next audit. And
yeah,
that just seemed to be a reoccurring thing that I just kept
yep,
saying. And then the opportunity came up to take over as MD, and I had I guess, a slightly different vision for the company than the direction it was in. So I put it to the board, kind of my vision, which was very much around that kind of social mobility, social
yeah,
justice, social improvement
yes,
angle, and maybe stop doing some of the things that we were doing and start going back to what our grassroots were, the why that we were set up. And luckily the board kind of took my direction on board, and that's the direction of travel that we've been doing. So I started my career kind of in education, working for the project straight out of university. I moved to Leeds for university, and my first job pretty much was to go and work on this project. The CEO was working on this much bigger project, which was the organization, and that was kind of, it was just right time, right place.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And was this, and you go back to childhood, but is this the sort of thing you saw yourself doing, or did you have
I think so. I don't know if this was the sort of thing. I think this is a very unique kind of role in education, but I think it's always been very known in my family. I was either going to work in education or the health service.
Right.
That, for a very long time, that was what that was my trajectory. I knew I was going to do it. I kind of diverted off that for a while and went and did an IT degree. But yeah, I think I always knew I'd be in education or at the health service. I think the older I got, the more I realised I probably wouldn't make a very good teacher. So it'd have to be something else in education that wasn't necessarily teaching. But so I've done my master's in kind of a pedagogical topic. So although I did an IT degree, I have kind of turned it back around and did my master's in something that's linked to the sector that I'm now in. But I think I was always destined to be somewhat in the health or education service.
Fantastic. And obviously looking back over 20 years, and well done for being survive. I don't know if you know the stats for business survival, but it's not great. It's I mean, look, so on average, 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years of
right.
Of the 20% that survive, another 80% of those fail in the following 5 years.
Right, so, interesting. Wow. I wonder what that statistic is for not-for-profits as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's that much different depending on the funding sources, etc. But it's a tough gig. So getting through 10, let alone 20, is just brilliant. So but I do hope you celebrate properly. I think that's
we are next week. We are.
But and over that 20 years, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome?
Oh, I mean, there's been so many. I think I think because we're so because we're government funded, everything we do is around the government policy and the government funding, and so government cuts, it always hits hard. Changing government is sometimes a challenge, but I think the biggest kind of hurdles are when it impacts our members the most. I mean, me as a business, a changing government isn't a huge impact. Actually, it's kind of something maybe quite exciting because we can flex and adapt, and and it's something quite exciting for us. But it's when it hits our providers hard, is when it hits us hard, and funding cuts and funding rates not being reviewed when they should be. At the moment, adult education funding rates haven't been reviewed in over a decade. So the providers are still getting paid now what they were being paid 10 years ago. There's no inclusion for rate inflation, or the fact that the cost of materials costs more money now, particularly in some of the areas like construction and social care and things like that. And therefore what we see is that providers don't survive, or we see providers having to make really difficult decisions about what they offer and how they offer it and how they deliver it. And I think we always find that the most difficult. And the last couple of years has been probably the most difficult in the 20 years in terms of that provider stability and viability, I think. When we had, I guess the other challenge is, and I don't think there's an organisation in education that wouldn't say that Ofsted isn't a challenge, and we've been Ofsted inspected 3 times as a business. One of those was not a cute period of time. The other 2 were much more pleasant experiences. But it's just, anything. We're in the post-16 education space, so we're not kind of school and sixth form. We're post-16 education. Post-16 education doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. It's not valued as much as it should be. It's not funded appropriately. And therefore that just makes everything else frustrating and challenging. But I think what what our members do, you know, providers and colleges, what they do, I think is the most magical part of education. I think it far supersedes what schools do, and it far supersedes what universities do, because it is life-changing. You know, post-16 education, further education is life-changing. And I think that we find frustrating as a representative body, because we're there banging drums and sitting at tables saying, don't forget about, or you haven't mentioned this, or, you know, and then that we find that frustrating, I think, as well. So, you know, the quality side of it and the funding side of it, and then just that recognition side of it, I think are probably the three most challenging and frustrating aspects of the job over the years.
I can really see that. It must have been quite challenging over time. And out of that, or other things, what would you say are the biggest things you've learned about business in general?
I think what we've learned about, I guess, education is that, and in further education particularly, there isn't anybody in further education that doesn't not care. You know, everybody cares. Nobody comes to education to do a bad job. Nobody comes into education to get rich. Nobody comes into education to pull wool over anyone's eyes, or not trust the process. And that is wonderful. It's just not great that governments don't necessarily see that, or there isn't parity between the different parts of the education system. And then in terms of kind of business support, I think what we've kind of recognized is that businesses are open to have a conversation about how skills might help their business. Where we do see a bit of a blockage and a barrier is, unless it can be exactly the way that you want it, they won't take it. Right. And that's always the difficulty. And that's why we try and say, industry speak one language, education speak the other, and very infrequently do they meet. And I think we are learning how to adapt that language and adapt that terminology or that conversation. But I think the other thing is things like workforce development. In the UK, very low down in the priority order compared to some of our European peers. We don't place a sufficient amount of priority on workforce development as a country. If you're going to do budget cuts, it's going to come from your CPD, or it's going to come from your workforce development fund before it comes from anywhere else. If businesses need to make redundancies, it's the apprentices they get rid of first. So we just don't put a lot of value on education and training to adults in this sector, and it's sad, because actually it's game changing, it's life changing, it's productivity changing, it's economically changing. So I think that's but when businesses get it, they get it, and then they're repeat, not repeat offenders is the wrong word when they come back for more and more, but they're repeat customers. But we just don't value it enough as a country, and that has to change, I think.
That makes absolute sense. And you're probably aware from our discussions before, we're a business coaching organisation, and I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, life in general, who've been the biggest influences on you.
Yeah, so I think I've had a couple of kind of big influences on me. All day long, my mum, she is my absolute like gold standard of human being, gold standard of businesswoman. So she did lots of incredible high-powered jobs in the health service through growing up, and she was aspirational, inspirational woman. She still is, but so she was my kind of barometer of success. And I don't think I'll ever get there, but it's always nice to have those aspirations. I also had I had a fantastic boss in my first job that really, and unfortunately got really, really poorly. But he took a chance on a straight out of uni, quite loud and obnoxious young girl that wasn't from, Yorkshire, didn't sound like anyone from Yorkshire. And he just took a chance on me. And I think I will always live to thank, the training that he gave me, and the endorsement that he gave me, and the risk that he took on me. Because, overnight I, went from being his number 2 to being the number 1 when he was, you know, poorly. So I will always thank him for that. I've had a great lady that did some consultancy work for us, really helped kind of change my mindset in the way that I looked at quality. I think I'm kind of a data person. I love data. I'm a data geek. That's probably why I did an IT degree. And my dad used to work for the National Audit Office. So he was we had computers in our house before anyone else did, because he was always tinkering with them. So I just looked at quality being a kind of a compliance thing. Well, we've got that, tick that box, or, you know, there's something in there, what are you injured about? But actually, she came in and kind of made it all pink and fluffy and flowery and lovely, and really kind of changed my mindset around the difference between compliance and quality. And you know, compliance is very black and white, and quality is very flowery and lovely and beautiful and great to have. And she kind of was, again, an inspiration for me, because she kind of took me out of what, you know, I thought I knew, and kind of changed that complete mindset. But it also now has allowed me to be able to effectively kind of work between that compliance and that quality role, and where some people struggle with that. They're either quality focused or they're compliance focused. Whereas I can kind of, you know, teeter on both sides of that fence. So she was a big inspiration for me as well.
Brilliant. And either from the people you mentioned or any other source, do you find yourself using any sort of regular quotes or sayings in business or in?
So I mean, there are two, one really positive and one not so. But I always kind of, and it's actually printed out on my parents have a quotes wall in their kitchen.
Brilliant.
And every member of the family has to bring their quote to the table, and then it gets put in. And mine is education is a powerful tool. It can be used to change, you know, the world, or which is a quote I use quite a lot. And then there's also a quote that is not as powerful from who was it that said it now? It was one of the prime ministers years and years and years ago that said, you could declare World War III in a skills policy because no one will read it.
Right.
And that was kind of the stance that they had on skills, that they were kind of making the point that skills didn't have enough government priority, but it kind of landed really flat that you could declare World War III as long as you put it in a skills policy, because no one would read it. And I don't think, and this was probably, it might have even been when we had a Labour government, because I came into education under a Labour government, so it might have been one of those ones. And it kind of, that hit home to, our government doesn't really prioritise skills or adult education. I don't think that's changed. I still don't think it's got the same priority or the amount of funding that it needs to have. So so they're two really interesting ones that I use a lot for very kind of different reasons. The kind of Nelson Mandela one, and then might have been Tony Blair that said it. But quite inspirational in very different ways, kind of thing. I think.
Absolutely brilliant. And what would you say you've learned about yourself throughout your career?
Oh dear. I don't know. I think the adaptability, resilience, those kind of I don't think you can work in education and not be resilient and adapt, be able to adapt to change. I think I probably, when I first started, maybe even the first kind of decade, I was probably a little bit of a people pleaser, whereas now, if I've got something to say, I'm going to say it.
Right.
And you know, I like the fact that I can go in and be that positive disruptor. I think if I'm being a representative of 100 or so organizations that don't get a seat at that table, that's my job, right? To be that positive disruptor and not just be a yes person. So I think that has kind of changed and evolved and become more kind of confident with that. But I've also learned I don't have a lot of patience. I don't tolerate people that don't care, you know, people that don't care about the job they're doing, or people that don't care about education. I'd rather you just didn't be near me or work for me, or get involved. If you're not passionate and you don't care to the same level, and to the same level that me and my team do, then you don't need to be part of this.
Absolutely. I think any organization, any team, any relationship, it's got to be a match of values. We think the same things are important.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you don't, then it's not going to work long term.
Not compatible.
No, absolutely. So obviously, really celebrating 20 years. It's been, I could tell, you've had some challenge over that time. What looking forward then? What does the future look like for you guys? And what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
So, well, again, there's always going to be challenges.
Yep.
But I said something at a recent, and it might be a quote that I've heard from somebody, but I don't know who it is. But the kind of my ethos now is where there's challenge, there's opportunity, and where there's difficulty, there's hope.
Absolutely.
And so trying to kind of have a positive spin on things. I think we can, particularly in our sector, which is a highly frustrating, and challenging sector, whilst we find talking about all our frustrations maybe cathartic, we need to get into a solution, in a position where we're saying, but so what? So what are we going to do about that? So how can we overcome that? So how can we come together to support that in a collaborative or connected way? And I think, so, the changing political landscape, that's ultimately going to have massive, differences coming our way in education. Policies get scrapped and people put their new stamp in. And, if we have a changing government, obviously I don't have a crystal ball, but
no, looking very likely, isn't it?
It's hoping. So I think, political landscape, that's very much what our focus for 2024 is going to be, and trying to help navigate our members through that, trying to help navigate businesses through that, help navigate schools through that. We have our script when we go out to a school or a business, but that script is going to be ripped up and thrown in the bin because there's going to be different, education offer. The pathways are going to be different. The trajectory is going to all of a sudden look different. I think in terms of another challenge, it won't be far from anyone's news, I guess, around the what's happened with Ofsted, and the changes that may come from inspection. So obviously supporting providers and making sure that our members are as aware of the inspectorate and what's about to happen to them as possible. I think it's amazing that we're celebrating our 20th birthday. I think we, it's something we're super proud of. And also during lockdown, you mentioned lockdown, we did very similar, I guess, to what you guys did. We just put everything online for free. And I didn't furlough any members of staff. We just spent every single day delivering workshops, doing webinars, doing wellbeing checks, doing mini online festivals, working out. We supported over 500 people on 30 different, themed kind of webinars and workshops and stuff. What that resulted in is when we stopped giving things away for free, our membership base doubled. So we went into lockdown with 56 members. We've now got 105.
Brilliant.
At the point that we went into lockdown, we were called West Yorkshire Learning Providers. We're now called Yorkshire Learning Providers because our membership base just expanded.
Brilliant.
So it's really good. Our business doubled in lockdown, and there's not, many people that can say that.
Absolutely.
We love the fact that we're Yorkshire wide. Our predominant membership base is West and North Yorkshire, but we're growing in East Yorkshire. We've got growing members in South Yorkshire, and that means that we've got a really great oversight of this incredible county that we all kind of live, work, and want to learn in. Which also means that we're that's a much the biggest region in the country, and we've decided that that's going to be our playground. So that's just a lot more to do and a lot more visits to go. I think what's great for our region is we're about to get North Yorkshire's about to come devolved, East Yorkshire's about to come devolved. With devolved powers becomes loads more opportunity to have localized, impactful, place-based provision that really meets need. And I'm really excited to be kind of front and center at helping shape that, particularly in kind of the York and North Yorkshire area. And So yeah, I think there's lots of exciting things. There's lots of opportunities. Lots of great things that providers can do together, loads of collaboration. There's going to be some challenging times, there's going to be some frustrations, but on the whole, I think that just kind of is all about opportunity, isn't it? If we can look at any change as an opportunity, and any challenge as a positive thing, then
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, there is. I was told a while ago, and I've not checked because I don't really find out whether it's true or not. Is that one of the Chinese dialects? The symbol for, let me get it right. I think the symbol for challenge has both two parts: problem and opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you said something earlier. I think absolutely bang on. We can see anything. The thing I always say to people in business is, if there's a new threat that is anything other than absolutely just to do with our business, if it's an industry based threat, then that's also an opportunity, because the organisations that solve that problem are the ones that are going to win. If it's
absolutely.
Everybody. So it's how can we make this into something amazing?
Yeah. That's it. And how can we turn this change into a hopeful, prosperous, fulfilling kind of service or business function or whatever? And I think that's the way to look at it. And if our providers and our members can't look at it that way because they're, heading the challenge, then that's our job as their representative body to try and bring that to light.
Yeah. Absolutely. And what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right now?
I mean, it's difficult. Recruit an apprentice. I will always say recruit an apprentice.
Great.
Apprentices can change the world.
Absolutely.
They can change business. I don't think I've ever employed an apprentice in the 20 years we've been having apprentices that hasn't come into my business and changed something for the better.
Brilliant.
Why are you doing that? Have you ever thought about doing it this way? Nope, you do it that way. Improved our website, improved the way that we engage with people. Look at the way we manage our data and be like, filing, or anything. So employ an apprentice, number one, always.
Brilliant.
First member of staff should be an apprentice. They can do anything. I think as well, do your research, look for where you can be a niche, or you can be, assess the landscape, assess your competitors. We've just had a strategy day. Every January, I take the team out to do a strategy day. And we look at kind of SWOT and PESTEL, as you do. But we also looked at our competitors. We looked at our geographical landscape. We looked at what's coming. And I think if you kind of assess that landscape, look what's happening, look at where you can network, look at where you can collaborate, look at where you can add value.
Yep. And
don't try and be something that's already there. Try and be the difference. Do your research, employ an apprentice. I'm not going to stop saying that.
You must know. You've been talking to that. I remember. And I should remember his name, but I interviewed doing these. He was the owner and MD or CEO now, I think, of an engineering business in Leeds, Kirkstall way, and he was an apprentice to that business. He's now the CEO, and they take on a whole bunch of apprentices.
Amazing. Amazing. I love stories like that. I used to live in Kirkstall as well, so yay.
Brilliant. I'll send you the link if I may.
Yeah, that would be great. Absolutely. Because last year we launched an online platform called the Yorkshire Apprenticeship Service.
Yes.
And it's a digital platform that basically just pulls everything Yorkshire apprenticeship based into a single platform. Because a lot of the feedback we were getting is the .gov site is, it's really big and can't really find the information, but also young people and adults and employers were saying, well, we don't recognize that marketing or that literature, or we don't know locally who is offering apprenticeship. So we designed the Yorkshire Apprenticeship Service to be a regional, place-based, localized information source for all things apprenticeships. So we've got, whether in West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, North Yorkshire, East Yorkshire, you can look at what employers are offering. You can look at the provision that's available. You can look at case studies and success stories. So we're always looking for case studies. My husband started his life as an apprentice, and he's now director of a business, and he employs apprentices every year. And that kind of closing the loop story, I just love it. So any you've got of that, send me them, because we'd love to highlight that.
With pleasure. I find that it was brilliant. It's a really great story, and it's such an advocate for apprentices. I think I think he said there's
Brilliant.
14 working there at the time. You know, they
Oh,
really are
nice.
going
Amazing. Yeah, I'd love
absolutely.
to know who that was.
I will find that out. I will find that out for you afterwards. And so finally, just the last question would be, what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you go back in time
Oh.
and do that, Alex?
Um, I would say um be kinder on yourself. I think
Yeah.
building that time. I spent a lot of years, and I probably haven't mastered it still, but um I have to work every hour under the sun. I have to,
Right.
the minute I open my eyes, I must be working to the minute I close my eyes. And I think particularly as you're starting out, you feel like you have to just be everything to everyone.
Yes.
So I think prioritize your health,
Yes.
prioritize your mental health, but prioritize that kind of social side. I think is really, really important. I think having a voice, don't be shy. If something, you're not happy with, say it.
Yeah.
Don't, and positive change can come from being vocal.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. I would say embrace the imposter syndrome. At some point in your life, or multiple times in your life, you will get imposter syndrome. I still to this day sit down and think, what do I do today? What is my job today? I don't know how to do my job. Or I'll be asked to speak at a certain conference. And so embrace imposter syndrome, because I think everyone has it. And it means that you're doing a good job. It means that you deserve to be there.
It really does.
And again, it goes back to that about have a voice. Don't be afraid to have a voice, because everybody's voice and everybody's opinion is valid. And if you don't say it, like you said about playing the trumpet, if we don't bang our own drum, it's an instrument that doesn't get played. And I think that's the same with our voice as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's interesting. I'm trying to remember where it came from, but I know Stephen Bartlett, the successful entrepreneur. He's one thing he said in an interview. I mean, maybe one of the interviews that we did as an organisation, and he said he loved imposter syndrome. He says still get it, still love it, and the way he looks at it, he says I love it. He says it means I'm in the right room and I'm going to learn.
Yeah. Something. And also that the butterflies. Yes. If you don't get I speak in at conferences, 150 people in the room. I probably get more nervous speaking in a room of 4 people.
Yes.
But also, if nervous means you care, right? If you get the butterflies, it means you care. It means you give a damn about what you're about to say or about the business you're representing.
Absolutely.
If you don't get nervous or you don't feel a bit of imposter syndrome, I don't think you care enough about what you do, quite frankly. So it's okay to feel nervous. It's okay to go, I've been in this business 20 years. I've been education 22, 23 years. I still get nervous. I still get imposter syndrome, because I care, because I give a damn about what I'm about to say, or the business that I'm representing, or the project or contract or policy I'm talking about. So
brilliant.
Embrace it.
Absolutely. Can see that. I can see the passion coming through in everything you say. So Alex, thanks so much for your time today.
No problem.
Just before we finish it, for anyone that's watching would like to get in touch with you or Yorkshire Learning Providers, what would be the best way to do that?
You could drop me an email or LinkedIn. I like to engage on LinkedIn. So
brilliant. Okay, well, I'm sure there'll be some details on the post that we put out with this video. And again, thank you again for your time. Be great to swing by another 6-12 months when we'll probably, as you rightly say, there's certainly the political landscape may well have changed. So it'd be good to see how that's affected you and what the next steps on that. So
definitely,
thanks so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.